The real question is this: are comic books good or are they not good?
I was fascinated with pre-code horror. One of the first major collections I bought was the Spokane collection, which had an incredible array of pre-code horror comic books.
Of course, doing the horror stories was a lot of fun. You could imagine how much fun it was to put these stories together, and you could do them any way you wanted.
I had no guidelines at all or restrictions. They would say to me, Ray, we're doing eerie comics. Here are the stories that are going in there. I look through them and I take things that I thought would illustrate them.
Stan looked at the letter and he says, I said, Mr. Lee, would you like to look at some of my work? He says, no, Jack says you're a good artist. He says, here, I want this back in a week.
Columbia Pictures presents Heavy Metal, a trip beyond the future to a universe you've never seen before. A universe of mystery, a universe of passionate fantasies, a universe of terrifying evil, a universe of magic. Heavy Metal. Heavy Metal, a step beyond science fiction.
All right, folks, welcome to the special Heavy Metal edition of the Sunday Nooner with Horror Mike. And before we get into the movies, which it's just going to be great, folks, I did pick up this book, and they delivered it yesterday. This is Metal Hurlant, 1975 to 1984. Now it's 290 pages of Metal Hurlant goodness, and it is really quite great. What they do is they cover a lot of stories. They reprint the early stories from that period, and they give you intros, into the stories here, as you can see. And there is a very nice article. I'm translating a bunch of this stuff from the French into English, but it's a great article here, The Birth of Metal Hurlant and Les Humanoid Associates there. And as you can see, try to get in there, Jules, Moebius, Dionne, and Farkas. Those are the humanoid associates that created Metal Hurlant. So yeah, I'm going through the process now. I do not speak French, so it's it's going to be a little tedious, but it's happening. I already started yesterday to translate the key parts, including that long article on the birth of Metal Hurlant, and as it relates to Heavy Metal Magazine, of course. So this is going to be a large part of many videos I'm going to do in the next couple of months. I think they're going to be quite amazing. So I think you're going to dig those. And if anybody's interested, granted, it's in French, and there is no English version of this that I'm aware of. So I just kind of bit the bullet and got the French version. But, there's translation which is what I'm doing. So it will be translated to English. But let's take a look and see what we got in the chat first. Let's see, Michael Taylor. Hello, Michael Taylor. How you doing? Michael Dodd is on the scene. Hello, Michael. Time to enjoy some heavy breath metal. Yes, indeed. Meyer Greenblatt is on the scene. Hello, everyone. Hello, Meyer Greenblatt. Yeah, that's the problem. It is in French. Yeah, and that's why I am translating it, Michael Taylor, for your enjoyment. Yes, indeed. I think you're going to get a kick out of these. It's going to be quite good indeed. So, what I have done today is that, and of course, what we're going to do here is we're taking a look first at Heavy Metal, the movie, 1981, and then we're going to take a look at Heavy Metal 2000, the sequel, and a few other things. Like, I don't know if you guys are aware, but they did put out a series called Metal Hurlant Chronicles, and I believe that was 2012 to 2014. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at that. I'm not that familiar with it, but we're going to take a peek at it in any case. And what I want to do here, let's see if I can make a what would you say, a poll? You know how you do that with the what would you say, a poll? Yeah, let me see if I can do this. There was something in here that allows you, let's see, participants is it pop out chat? What is now? I don't think so. Ah, here we go. All right. Let's see if I can do this. All right. I'm going to put a poll up, best heavy metal segment. Okay. Yeah, here we go. B17. I think this is going to work. Oops. The hell does that mean? Well, maybe that, I don't know. Maybe the poll sucks. I'm not really sure. It doesn't look like it's giving me as many as I want. Well, in any case, I'm going to put these in the chat. I think that's the best way to go. So let me show you first. I've lined these up on my webpage. Okay, here we go. So just to remind people, here are the segments in the original heavy metal movie. Now, pardon me, I had my nose. Okay, this is B17. Okay, this is Captain Stern. This is the Den segment. I love that frame. It's great because it's not showing anything really. You know what I'm saying? Here is the Grimaldi segment. Now, this is considered the wraparound. Now, you guys, as far as I'm concerned, I really do consider it the wraparound thing. It's not really a segment per se, but I put it in there because they do separate it by the title Grimaldi. And here, of course, is Harry Canyon, our favorite hard-boiled taxi driver in the future. Great segment. So beautiful, so dangerous, of course, with the drug-addled aliens and the horny robot, of course, and the sexy secretary. Oh, yes. And of course, Taarna. This is the 7th segment. And so there's the 7, folks. And so what I'm asking you guys to do is to tell us your favorite. You know, which one do you consider to be the best? And you may even put them, if you want, you can put them in order from best to worst. I'm putting my favorite on here. There it is, B-17. Absolutely my favorite. The only complaint I have about B-17 is that it was not long enough. They really should have added 5 minutes to the thing. I mean, it kind of happens rather quickly, and it could have been, evolved a little more, and given some, I don't know, just some more story to it, but that was the Dana Bannon segment, and I think it's just incredibly effective. I'm not knocking the other. I mean, it was, it's kind of a hard choice because Captain Stern is hilarious. I love that segment. Um, let's see here. Let's go back to our chat. See what's going on. Meyer says Plutonian Nyborg. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, indeed. The So Beautiful, So Dangerous segment. Michael Taylor, Heavy Metal was such a fun movie. Yeah, absolutely. I never saw it until yesterday. Oh God. Did you get a chance to watch Heavy Metal 2000, Michael Taylor? I mean, it is not heavy metal, but I think it's still good, you know. It's definitely worth watching. Let's put it that way. Meyer Greenblatt says Lochnar. Michael Dodd watched Heavy Metal 2000 last night. So did I. Michael Dodd. And I also watched Fire and Ice. I'm going to bring that up here. Fire and Ice is well worth talking about. That is the Ralph Bakshi, Frank Frazetta joint venture film. Absolutely, you guys got to watch it. You guys got to watch it. Michael Dodd says, watched Heavy Metal 2000 last night. It falls well short of the classic original. Yeah, and it didn't improve for me on later viewings. The original seems better than ever. The music in the original is awesome. Yeah, I think for the most part it is. I was going to bring that up. There are a couple of clunkers that I'm not even quite sure why they put them in heavy metal. Like, there's a Stevie Nicks song. I'm just like, what? I don't know. A couple of things, but for the most part, I agree that the soundtrack is fantastic. Now, as I, put in here, my favorite segment is the B-17. So you guys, oh, hey, we got Hammerhead. Hello, Hammerhead. Agreed. B-17. That's 2. That is 2. Meyer says it's close to a tie, but it's okay. Well, okay, it's Taarna and Den. Okay, so are you saying Taarna first? Could be. Michael Dodd says Taarna, Den, and B-17 are really close. Yeah, it was really, I mean, for me, it was totally like, I was like, oh God, what the hell? And the thing is that Taarna is, of course, Taarna and Den are more fully developed. It seems to me like they're long. I know, absolutely. Taarna is a long segment. It is the end segment of the film, and it runs like 15 to 20 minutes, right? I mean, it is like fully developed. As I say, if they had given like 5 more minutes to the B-17 segment, it would have been insanely good. I think it was just the problem with that segment is that it's too short. And Den is also fully realized. I mean, the whole intro, everything, it explains it beautifully, and it's just, it works fantastically, really. Meyer says the original soundtrack is outstanding. I fell asleep halfway through 2000 last night. Yeah, that soundtrack ain't outstanding. Okay. There's some really interesting shit about Heavy Metal 2000 we're going to get into today. First, I'd like to ask everybody that's watching, please hit the like. And if you haven't already, subscribe. I really appreciate it. And if you can, share. You know, sharing is caring. Or some shit like that, right? Okay. Hammerhead says, Wizards is another great Bakshi movie. Yes, it is. I enjoy it. As a matter of fact, I got to say that I don't know, I saw that in a movie theater circa, this was early 80s, I guess, you know. But of course, that was the time at the time with so many great films and animated films. That was one of them. Bakshi was just on fire. That guy was doing everything. Once again, guys, speaking of fire, Fire and Ice. It's on Tubi. Absolutely check it out. And if I hope Wizards gets on Tubi. I swear to God, they should really be doing that. Meyer says Taarna is my favorite. So we got Taarna. We've basically, at this point, we got two for Taarna, and we've got 2 for B-17. So we got a tie here. So that's what we got thus far, folks. We got 2 for Taarna and 2 for B-17. Taarna ties into the wraparound, which encompasses the whole movie. Yes, that is true. Okay, so this is how I want to start this off, folks, just to give you some history about the films. Okay, and of course we have to start off with heavy metal. Okay, heavy metal was, and I'm going to get to this, but heavy metal was originally, it was Metal Hurlant, which came out of France. And what happened is that the publisher of National Lampoon, Leonard Mogul, was over in France, and he was actually pushing for a European version of National Lampoon, right? He was trying to get that, spread out through Europe, and he just discovered Metal Hurlant, and he was like, "Wow, this is fantastic." That is when he decided, man, I have got to do an English version of this magazine and publish it in the United States, North America. And thus, 1977, you have heavy metal. You have heavy metal. So just to give you a further history, this is the first issue of Metal Hurlant. Okay, that's issue number 1. This image is on issue number 2 of Heavy Metal. Metal Hurlant uses this image on issue number 8. Okay, am I getting confusing for you yet? They did this all over the place. Okay, but before Metal Hurlant, there was Pilote. Okay, and Pilote was around for years and years before Metal Hurlant, and in the early 70s, artists like Moebius, Droulet, and others appeared in Pilote. It wasn't until 1974 that these guys, the humanoid associates, as it were, consisting of Moebius, Droulet, DNA, and Farkas. Farkas being the money guy, the producer, the executive producer. He is the guy that got Metal Hurlant off the ground. But they decided, hey, we need to put out our own illustrated magazine of science fiction and fantasy that's going to break the rules. And that's really what it was. That was the whole deal. That's why Metal Hurlant was born. Because Pilote was not, it was a general, magazine of culture, I guess. There was a lot of, definitely a lot of illustrators, but there was a lot of comedy stuff. It was, they definitely had a lot of humor in the magazine. Pilote was actually, I don't know if he founded it, but he certainly was the editor in chief for a long time. The guy that did Asterisk, Asterix. Jesus, that guy. Okay, so he was running Pilote at the time, and of course, he had the great taste to get people like Droulet and Moebius aboard to lend their artistic qualities to the magazine. So that's kind of how that went there. Yeah. So, and originally, getting back to the whole thing here, just a little magazine background. When heavy metal hit the stands in the United States, originally they were reprinting all of the stories from Metal Hurlant, but that quickly changed. They started getting American artists and writers, and so you know very quickly, soon after the launch of heavy metal, they started incorporating different stories. And of course, they would have articles too, that were not in Metal Hurlant. So that's kind of how that went, you know. So, yeah, heavy metal, my friends. Let's get on down to it. Now, this is something you guys, I want to show you this real quick. This is a Moebius rendering here from Metal Hurlant and Heavy Metal Magazine. His influence was vast. Moebius, no doubt, one of the greatest artists involved with Metal Hurlant and heavy metal. His influence, incalculable. So, I mean, you see it here with Road Warrior. That image they put on the freaking car. I mean, he was also an artist for Alien. I don't know if you ever saw his stuff that he did for Alien, for the designs of the spacesuits and so forth, and of course the interiors of the ship. But there was a lot of influence of Metal Hurlant and heavy metal in science fiction films. Dan O'Bannon had a bit to do with that as well. So I just wanted to point, there's a ton of these, but I just wanted to point that out real quick. So here we go with Heavy Metal, the movie, 1981. And so the film is actually Canadian. I'm sure you guys are probably aware of this. It was helmed by Gerald Potterson, produced by Ivan Reitman. Of course, he also produced Animal House and Ghostbusters and numerous other films. But this is why, if you ever wondered why, hey, why are all these SCTV actors, doing voiceovers? And of course, we have a great shot here from the prime SCTV days with From Left to Right, John Candy, Joe Flaherty, and Eugene Levy right there, And so these guys, of course, they're all Canadian. So naturally, they were hired to do voiceovers and not pictured the great Harold Ramis, of course. RIP, rest in peace, Harold Ramis, another guy that just left us not too long ago. But one of the interesting things about heavy metal was that they utilized the rotoscoping technique a lot. Now, this wasn't something new. Obviously, Ralph Bakshi was using the rotoscoping technique before this. But it's very interesting. I have a couple of things for you guys to check out. Let me just go back here for a second. Right, that is the movie there. So here we go. This is a live action actress doing stuff, sequence from Taarna, the segment Taarna. Okay. So this is the girl they used for to do the rotoscoping. And just to let you guys know, if you're not aware, rotoscoping, what they do is they shoot a live action sequence, right? Then they project that sequence, and an artist draws over the frames. Okay. And then thus it creates the animations. That's how they do it. And here, this will give you a really good example right here. This is again from Taarna. And as you can see on the right, the live action actress, she's just, she's doing going by the script and doing these physical gestures and so forth. And the artist goes in literally over the top of the actress and then comes out with these cells. Okay, these are painted cells, and that forms the animation. So therein lies the rotoscoping. So I'm going to stop there for a second because I know some people have chimed in. Let's see here. Hammerhead says, love B-17 because it has that creep show tales of the crypt elements while maintaining heavy metal feel. Love the horror creators in the mag like Enric Torres and Simon Bisley. Yeah, Simon Bisley, of course. Well, that was a lot to do with Heavy Metal 2000, which we will get into. Michael Dodd saw Wizards in the theater. Yes, indeed. I think Bakshi's Fire and Ice and Lord of the Rings are his best. Fire and Ice was just, I mean, I hadn't seen it in a long time. Decided to watch it. Actually, I watched that, and then I watched Heavy Metal 2000 yesterday. But I'm glad I watched Fire and Ice. Just stunning, really, just stunning art, animation. God, you know. Meyer says, me too, Michael. I can remember seeing Wizards in the theater also. I didn't see Fire and Ice until the 90s on VHS. Yeah, I guess a lot of us saw Wizards in the theater. That's great. Yes. Man, those were the days. Hammerhead says, Hurlant is great because it introduced us to many Euro artists like Milo Manara. Yeah, are you kidding me, man? Moebius, Droulet, Kaza, Voss, I could go on. Okay. I mean, it's just astounding the amount of great artists that came out of that. Not only that, but of course, from the get go, they had people like incredible artists like Richard Corbin, even Robert Crumb, you know, did art. If you guys ever saw Crumb's, I'm going to have to, I'll do this later, but they have that, they reprint the Crumb. Put that right up there. Philip K. Dick's Religious Experience as drawn by Crumb. I will get to that. But right now we're kind of on a track with the chat. Michael Dodd, somewhere. Oh, same here, Meyer. I saw Fire and Ice later and it blew me away. Yeah, Frazetta. Good God. Talk about a combo, Frazetta and Ralph Bakshi. Jesus. Man. Hammerhead says, fantastic planet. Yeah, I love that film. While not heavy metal or metal Hurlant, it's definitely had that early 70s inspiration and mindset. Another great film. Yeah, excellent animation. I highly recommend that, folks. Hammerhead is absolutely right. If you have not seen Fantastic Planet, check that one out. It is an amazing film. I don't know if that's on Tubi or not. It might be. Meyer says, yeah, it was crazy. It's like Filmation Rotoscope meets Frazetta. So awesome. Yes. Michael Taylor says, I'm partial to the first story because I live in Manhattan, but I also like the robot banging the chick story. Yeah, it is funny. It is totally hilarious. Oh boy, I can't even read. They're what? They're deifying the park? What? I can't really. I'm not getting that one there, Meyer. Michael Dodd, love Princess Tigra, classic Frazetta princess. Yes, big in all the right places. Yeah, she's man. They just did that so well, so well. Hammerhead Jodorowsky wanted Moebius to do a lot of the design work on his Dune concept. Yes, yeah, that was just a complete. Yeah, it was just a disaster. You know, just never happened. It unfortunately, you know, of course, Dan O'Bannon was in on it too. He was one of the original guys that was called upon. Unfortunately, it just did not come together, you know. Meyer says John Candy is a fantastic as Danny. Yeah, he is. He worked perfectly, you know. I mean, it's like if you, I don't know. I'm not. He just his voice work is really great in heavy metal, Taylor. But I enjoyed all of them. Yeah, they're all great. That's what makes it really difficult. You know, Myers says, I first became aware of rotoscoping as a kid watching the Filmation Tarzan series. Yes, indeed. And I think Disney even did some early rotoscoping, if I'm not mistaken. Michael Dodd, yes, John Candy as Den and his Earth's predecessor is great. Yep. Yeah, it's so well done. Hammerhead, love your channel. Just came across it, subbed. I'll check out the rest of the stream after work. Cheers, Mike. Thank you, Hammerhead. Thank you for joining us, and absolutely, I hope you enjoy the other videos. And please come on back. We're going to do a live show on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Then we're going to be back on Sunday doing a live show at noon. But glad to have you on board, Hammerhead. Okay, so here we go. So we're talking about we just talked about the rotoscoping technique, which it works really well. Of course, some people bitch about it and they're like, well, that's not real animation because you're not really just drawing. Yes, technically they're going over the film, but man, it's a lot of work, you know? I mean, and I think they just did such a great job with it. It works so well in heavy metal. Let's see here. So in the film, in the first film, 1981 Heavy Metal, you know, they had 7 animation studios from around the world doing animation for the film, which was probably a great idea, considering that, of course, all of the, you know, the different segments had their different artists and writers in the first place. So, you know, spread it out and you're going to come in with different results, different looks for different things. And I think they just hit it spot on. It just, you know, and at the same time, there's a certain amount of cohesion, you know, obviously within the segments. So, of course, Harry Canyon, Dan, and Captain Stern segments were taken directly from the magazine. They had been published, you know, in the magazine previously. The Taarna sequence was written specifically for the film and was loosely based upon Arzach by Moebius, although he was strangely not credited for it. That's one thing I do not quite get. And let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. Okay. So here we have, of course, Taarna. And I just took a screen grab from several people talk about this, but let me read this to you. It says, based on the legendary Moebius Arzach, Taarna is not only heavy metal's iconic poster, but it also, you know, this guy thinks it's also the film's best story. The Lochnar tells the girl that she is the last of a race that will destroy it one day and tells the story of Taarna. You know, so there you go. It was absolutely from the Moebius framework of Arzach. And just to show you, this is Arzach. There he is. There's our character flying his bird around. Here is Taarna flying her bird. Okay. Here is just a, you know, classic scene as Taarna's flying around on her bird. And you can notice the background here. Okay. And here is just a classic background from Arzach. So you can totally see the similarities. And I don't know why he was not credited, you know, because they just took Arzach and what they did. And I think I had talked about this last week. Arzach, the stories of Arzach are short. You know, they're 4 or 5 pages. I don't know if you guys ever read any of them. They're awesome, but they're not, there's no really wide reaching, there's no big story arc going on. This guy gets into weird confrontations and situations with other aliens and civilizations and just all kinds of stuff. Sometimes the stories will end like on a humorous note. I think they're very dry humor. I love them. The art is spectacular. Okay. Now I will have this link in the description. There is an Arzach animated film that's about 40 minutes long. This is a screen grab from it here, the larger image. You guys got to check it out if you want to see some Arzach animation. Now, it is not, obviously, as the animation is not as involved as heavy metal. Okay, I'm just telling you straight up, it's more basic, but it still works. And so it covers, like, I don't know, like a dozen segments of Arzach, and they're all like 3 or 4 minutes long, something like that. 3 minutes, 4 minutes. They're short. And it's just these little vignettes that Arzach gets himself involved in. And it's highly entertaining. It's great. I will have that in the linked in the description. It is on YouTube. If you just look up Arzach animation, you'll find it. But so that is the interesting connection there between Arzach and Taarna. So of course we're getting to the old heavy metal soundtrack here, folks. As you can see, boy, this turned out to be a pain in the ass too. Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, Devo, Donald Fagen, of course, from Steely Dan, Don Felder, obviously from those guys, California, the Eagles, right? Grand Funk Railroad, Sammy Hagar, Journey, Nazareth, Stevie Nicks for some unknown reason, Riggs, Trust, not really sure about those guys, but in any case, as you can see, it's really overall a great soundtrack, and they ended up just getting into some copyright hell with this soundtrack. God. Okay, let me explain. Okay, first off, Elmer Bernstein composed the music, to heavy metal, right? Then you had the soundtrack supplied by the various artists, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, Black Sabbath, etc. But due to soundtrack copyright issues, the movie was not released on VHS until 1996. So 1981 to 1996, 15 years, they could not release the damn film on VHS. Kevin Eastman, okay, we're talking, yes, Kevin Eastman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, bought the publishing rights to the magazine Heavy Metal, and he ended up working out the legal issues surrounding the soundtrack, and thus was able to release the film on VHS in 1996. So you can thank Kevin Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Eastman for getting that problem sorted out. Believe it or not, that is what just amazing. Copyright hell is what happened to the heavy metal music soundtrack. God, just incredible. I'm sure I've got a few things here. What do we get here? Here we go. Michael Dodd. Yes, John Candy as Den, and his Earth predecessor is great. Yeah, we saw that one. We saw Hammerhead. Jacob Bornowski here on the scene. Hi, Jacob. How are you doing? Michael Taylor, John Candy was so funny, such a talented comedian. It's hilarious. Second City Television, man, SCTV, absolutely my favorite comedy series. No doubt about it. It's just, and so much of it is on YouTube. I was just watching some of it the other night, It's just, it's always, it never loses. Like throughout time, 40 years, later, 30 years later, whatever, it's still as funny today. It is just hilarious shit. Those guys were just absolute genius. The Canadian comedians, it's mind-boggling, really. Michael Dodd says Taarna is beautiful, of course, but with only a D cup size, she's practically flat-chested compared to some of the other heavy metal chicks. Busty heaven, yeah. Oh yeah, God, they really did. They really did kind of go nuts with that, and of course, as we know, that was just something that sadly, eventually, and that's why I say that, of course, this book I had that I just bought. I'll be showing it at the end, but 1975 to 1984, Metal Hurlant. Those are the best years for Metal Hurlant. For heavy metal, 1977 to 1982, maybe 1984. So maximum 5 to 7 years. That period, and then after that, it just started this decline. It became kind of like this pinup softcore nudie cartoon thing. I mean, like you just look at their covers. Now, heavy metal and Metal Hurlant always had the erotic element. That's no doubt about that, folks. It was always there. But man, the covers just started. It was just like, okay, here's a, scantily clad chick, with a sword or whatever the hell. And it just, they were just trying, they were strictly selling it with sex, which no, that was not the original total intent of heavy metal. That was not it, There was always a sexy element, but that was not the gist of it, Lol, damn right, Michael. Oh yeah. Yeah. True that. Michael Taylor, was the magazine inspired by the movie or the other way around? The movie came later, Michael Taylor, is 1981. As I said before, Heavy Metal magazine came out in 1977, but it was preceded by Metal Hurlant, which came out in 1975. So there's the thing there. So several years before the film, but I got to say this, very rapid. When Heavy Metal magazine debuted in the United States, I believe it was April of 1977. It took 4 years for them to come out with a movie that had almost a $10 million budget. So they were serious. And that's success, folks, right there. They were just like, yeah, this is, heavy metal is hot. We got to do this movie. Here's the money. And $10 million in 1980 was a shitload of money, okay, to do a movie. And they did it right. Obviously, they didn't spare any expense. Really, it's just like the film is fantastic all the way around. Michael Dodd, anytime Corbin is involved, the voluminous fun bags will be emphasized. Oh, yes, they will. Michael Dodd. That's a double feature. Jacob says, love what Richard Corbin has to offer with basically anything he does. Really just he is. Besides the big-breasted women, Richard Corbin was an absolute genius illustrator. The way his coloring, the way he did the colors, he did layers, and he did all kinds of tricks. There was a variety of optical tricks that he did to get these colors and things for his pages, and Corbin could do it like none other. I mean, you look at those. That's one of the things that grabbed me originally about heavy metal. All of those artists were fantastic. I was just blown away by Droulet and Moebius, but Corbin's colors, when they, it was mind-boggling what the guy was doing. He was already a great artist. Go back to his underground comics. A lot of these guys came out of the underground comics, whether it was here or in France or whatever. Corbin was doing underground stuff. I recommend one of his early works, a comic book. It's a standalone title called, I think it was called The Black Plague. Black Plague? Plague. Plague of Death. Black Plague. Something like that. Okay. But I highly recommend it. It's about the Black Plague. And it's all black and white, and it's all just like these line drawings he did. You know, this is before he got into the heavy duty coloring. But it is fantastic. You know, Tales from the Plague. That's what it's called. Tales from the Plague. Michael Dodd, right on, Jacob. Corbin is one of the greats, certainly is. Okay, yes, indeed. I'm glad I could explain that. Michael Dodd, the color stories Corbin did for Warren Mags in the 70s are excellent. Yeah, lots of Poe adaptations. And they just, you know, Warren just kept giving him more and more space and doing more and more color. He was, you know, I mean, I don't know if any other artist had as many standalone issues devoted to themselves like Corbin. I mean, there were, between Creepy and Eerie, there were at least several issues that were just Corbin, and they're all of them are incredible. They're just, you know, Jim Warren was I'm sure he was just sitting there going, yeah, let's just run with all of these stories. They're just too damn good, you know. And the writing, oh my God, man, some great stuff. Truly, some great work out of from the Warren illustrated magazine. So that was pretty much the thing. You know, what I wanted to talk about with the first heavy metal. Now we move into, yes, folks, we're moving into a bit of Heavy Metal 2000. Now there's the VHS, the original 1996 VHS, louder and nastier than ever. Of course, heavy metal, released 15 years later. Thank that mutant Ninja Turtle. Here we go. Heavy Metal 2000. I'm pretty sure that's a Simon Bisley. He did the poster art for it. Of course, it is based upon his comic book, or the comic book that he illustrated, Melting Pot. And of course, Kevin Eastman wrote it. Talbot and Bisley were the artists. So there you go. That is Melting Pot. That is where Heavy Metal 2000 storyline came from. But let's get back here, because there's a few things. There's a little bit of tomfoolery and chicanery, and might I say, some shenanigans. Okay, that were happening with this, because you guys have now seen, or I'm assuming everybody has seen the first heavy metal. That's 1981. Okay, so the last segment is Taarna. Okay, you know what happens, right? In Taarna, the guy, you know, he's just a normal townsfolk guy. He gets, you know, they all get exposed to that green glowing Lochnar lava, and it turns them evil. Turns that guy evil, and of course he wipes out Taarna's kin, her, you know, people. So of course she ends up getting revenge, and she kills the guy, the tyrant, you know. Okay, in Heavy Metal 2000, there's a miner named Tyler. He is exposed to the key to the chamber. That's the glowing crystal that, you know, the guy finds it, and then Tyler comes over and he's looking at it, he touches it, and then he becomes possessed. And he immediately goes insane. He kills the other miner. Then he goes to the planet Eden and just basically commits genocide. He wipes out almost all of the Edenites, right? And then of course he captures some of them, because there's, you know, he wants to get the immortality fluids from their bodies. And the lead character in Heavy Metal 2000, of course, is Carrie. She is the vocals. She's voiced by Julie Strain. But her character Carrie seeks revenge on Tyler. Now, do you spot any similarity there? Basically what they did is they took Taarna. Absolutely. They took that and they were like, hey, that was a very popular segment in heavy metal. Let's develop it into this comic book, called The Melting Pot. And then, of course, they took that and developed it into Heavy Metal 2000. But it's essentially the same story. This girl's tribe or, fellow citizens get wiped out by a madman who's been infected by, it's either the Lochnar or the glowing crystal. And then she goes on she seeks revenge on the evil character, deity, or whatever you want to call him. That's exactly what they did. They just took Taarna and developed it into a feature film, in my opinion. What do you guys? What saith you folks about that? I mean, did you notice that similarity? Yeah, we did that. Here we go. I thought Julie Strain did subpar voice acting in Heavy Metal 2000. It helps to be married to Eastman and to be a Penthouse pet. Yeah, I thought she was suitable. I mean, look, considering the whole thing, it was like they were all kind of. I mean, she was no Michael Ironside. Let's put it. Michael Ironside was just nailing it as Tyler. He voiced Tyler. He was great, man. He had that because he is, he plays the heavy. He does a lot of those. He's just really great. Michael Taylor says, "I'm surprised Kiss didn't have any tunes on heavy metal." I am too. I'm kind of amazed they didn't get in there. Kiss would have helped the lackluster soundtrack, Michael. Yeah, they would have. Yeah, in my opinion, you've got Blue Oyster Cult, Devo. Well, of course, the Don Felder song, Heavy Metal, is really good. The Sammy Hagar song, I like that. Of course, it kicks it into gear, But yeah, there were some of that soundtrack just was kind of lame, I mean, even the Cheap Trick song was just kind of like, what? No, 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 no. It should have been more rocking. They just had Stevie Nicks. What the hell was she doing on it? I don't know. I don't know. Good Lord. So, in any case, we go on to the future incarnations, folks. This is interesting shit right here. Okay. There is a nice screenshot from Heavy Metal 2000. Tyler in the background here. He has just blasted a hole through this guy's head. I do love that whole thing, perspective, all that stuff. Really cool. So here we go. What happened after Heavy Metal 2000? Well, they wanted to do another film, right? That did not happen. So, in 2008, there were plans for apparently a heavy metal movie remake to be directed by David Fincher, the guy that did Seven and I believe Alien 3, but it was scrapped. They thought his ideas for the film were way over the top. They didn't like it. To me, that sounds good. It might have been really good, but the studio was not going for it. So in 2011, Robert Rodriguez, he bought the rights. Filmmaker El Mariachi, From Dusk Till Dawn, The Faculty, great. Planet Terror, come on. I could see him doing it. Robert Rodriguez bought the rights to the movie in order to make another film. It did not happen again. You see how these things work? It's just like sometimes shit just never comes together, unfortunately. So a few years after that, the project morphed into a Netflix series called Love, Death, and Robots, which if you look at an episode or two, you'll see like a vague resemblance to heavy metal, but it's not technically attached to it at all. So that's just what ended up happening. And but in that period of time as well, from 2012 to 2014, there was a Franco-Belgian live-action anthology series called Hurlant Chronicles, and uncannily in English language. So weird. I've only seen bits and pieces of this. It is on. You can catch some clips if you want on YouTube. I have not seen a full episode. I saw one. I saw like 10 minutes from one episode. It was not my cup of tea, but I am going to give it a chance. Let me show you a couple of things from it here. Here is one of the advertisements, one of the posters, Hurlant Chronicles. Now she's looking good now. Okay, that's what I'm saying. I like the poster art. That's it's a double feature right there for you. And this is a screen grab from one of the segments. To me, it looks very Droulet. It's kind of sparked my interest. Once again, I've seen very little of this. The one part of one segment I saw, I was like, it was just really sword and sorcery. I mean, these guys, basically, a lot of it was these guys just battling, having a sword fight. And I was like, okay, well, that's not really the kind of thing I'm into. But then I saw some stills from it, like this. This looks really interesting, folks. So I'm going to be checking it out. Let's see if I can, locate a few episodes that are more science fiction oriented, it could be good. It could be interesting. It is live action, once again, not animated. And God only knows if they're going to come out with an animated, an actual Heavy Metal 3000 or whatever. I mean, I'm like, there's no point in a remake. I don't even know why, unless, there's so many things to choose from, so many great stories from back in the day, like the first 5-7 years. Man, there's no excuse. You don't just do the same episodes again. You should just get back there. There's a ton of stuff they could do. I mean, Moebius and Droulet were essentially left out. You had Kaza not in there. Several others. Von Baudet, folks. Of course, Bakshi, Wizards, all that stuff with Von Baudet, but not in Heavy Metal. They could use one of his stories, Sunpot or something, for, if they were going to do yet another Heavy Metal film. Of course, in today's, politically correct climate, can you imagine? None of this shit would ever fly. They would be like, yeah, screw you. We're not. The studios are so, they're just scared. They won't do anything. So, it's kind of like you'd have to be like an Elon Musk type of guy with billions and throw some guy like $50 million to do an animated film. And that would be it. That'd be the way to go with that. See what we got. Yeah. Michael Dodd says, yeah, Heavy Metal 2000. Pardon me. God, I have a problem with my throat. Heavy Metal 2000 plot is overly derivative of the original. I wasn't thrilled. Yeah, it was really derivative. Meyer says, I love it all because I played that tape over and over in my first car driving around all night with my friends. Of course. Of course. Shadowhawk Talks. Hail Horror Mike and the chat. Hail Shadowhawk Talks. How are you doing, my good man? And let me take this time to say again, if you haven't already, please hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps get the word out there, and all of that magical algorithm bullshit. So It would be greatly appreciated. Michael Taylor says, yeah, because the girl in the beginning that was a threat became the next warrior. Yes, that was the tie-in there. I enjoy the variety of the great music on the original soundtrack. The Heavy Metal 2K soundtrack reminded me of a parking lot. Canine gangbang. Yeah, I don't know. As I say, there were some things out of the first one I did not like at all, but so much better than the Heavy Metal 2000 soundtrack. Michael Dodd there. Meyer says, Mike, do you remember a heavy metal continuing story? I think it was called The Ape. I wonder if that was that heavy metal English, or are you thinking metal Hurlant? It's not ringing a bell. The Ape. Meyer says, also, I really like oh yeah, Charles Burns. The Lucha Detective, yes. Yeah, there's another guy, Charles Burns. You had a great American artist, as it progressed along. Charles Burns, Robert Crumb, of course, Richard Corbin was always there, but Bernie Wrightson, good Lord. Michael Dodd, the studios are whipped. They lost their ball sacks. Yeah, they did. It's a joke. And, fortunately, we have at least the original material. And as I told you guys, I'm going to be taking a very deep dive into Metal Hurlant, heavy metal magazines, Pilote, all of them, even Spanish editions. I'm going to show you guys the differences in these magazines, because there are differences, and some of them are profound. So it's going to be a very interesting deep dive over the next few months. Gold Key Geezer is on the scene. Hi, Gold Key Geezer. So in any case, that pretty much wraps up my presentation here, although I do have one more thing I want to show you guys, just a bit of this. I'm not going to play it all, but it's very interesting. Okay, and it's just a little video on science fiction movies and how Metal Hurlant and heavy metal magazines influenced these films. And of course, needless to say, I can go back up here. I showed you one little example. Right here. This is Moebius taken from Metal Hurlant. Miller put it right on a freaking car in Road Warrior. But it gets better than that. We're going to take a little gander. So check this out. Just a bit, just a couple of minutes.
I was fairly brimming over with ideas and information from various sources of graphic art, really. I'd been just discovering science fiction, if you like, at that point, mainly through the hands of Moebius, right, and all those heavy metal comics.
found it.
Okay. I just wanted to show you guys a bit of that. It's on YouTube, but it's definitely an important little video that shows you the correlation between really, I mean, Metal Hurlant was something of a kind of a cultural revolution in art. You know, it's not putting it lightly. I'm not really overstating that, because there was nothing like that that had existed before. Excuse me. God. Pilote was kind of, it was vaguely similar, but as I was saying, it was kind of a traditional all around culture magazine. They had a lot of humor, you know, just straightforward, crazy, wacky humor stuff in it and whatever. But when those guys formed, when Moebius, Droulet, and Farkas formed Les Humanoid Associates and came out with Metal Hurlant, it just set the world on its freaking ear, really. I mean, if you know, so quickly after Metal Hurlant surfaced, suddenly you've got, you know, the publisher of National Lampoon going, shit, this has got to go to the United States. We've got to release this in English. That's how big it was. Almost immediately, within 2 years, it was, you know, in the US. So, and then, of course, 4 years later, it's a major motion picture, right? So it kind of gives you an idea as to how heavy metal and Metal Hurlant set the world on fire. It really did. And that's what I'm going to be doing largely, uh, as far as like shorter videos goes over the next couple of months, taking a deep dive into those magazines, into magazines that influenced them or were influenced by them, such as Marvel's Epic, stuff like that. And I think that you're going to really find a lot of this material very interesting. It's just, it's a fascinating trip into what I consider to be some of the greatest art ever produced in illustrated magazine form. There's no doubt about it. It was just, they broke the rules, they broke the mold, and they created a cultural phenomenon. That's what they did. And so it's something that the more I see of it, the more I realize, because I mean, I was buying this stuff when I was, you know, a teen, right? You know, going into my 20s. I was buying Metal Hurlant and Heavy Metal magazine. I even bought Metal Hurlant. I couldn't read it, but I knew that I was like, God, this shit looks so good. And of course, then when I would get Heavy Metal, it would have the same story in it. So then of course I would be like, oh, okay, this is what it means exactly, you know, stuff like that. But you know, you will see the differences. And I think you'd be kind of surprised the way that these, between the French, the Spanish, the Italian, the American versions of the same magazines, how they differ, the even down to the paper they used. Very crucial stuff, you know. So it's going, and of course the artists, you know, their backgrounds. Jesus Christ, man, some of these guys had some harrowing you know, experiences growing up. Droulet, you know, his both of his parents were uber fascists. You know, his mother praised Hitler on a daily basis. The guy escaped that horror in his house by delving into art, by going to museums, by creating his own characters. And a lot of that comes out in his work. I mean, you see it, the terror of tyranny in his work. It is there. And he grew up in it, you know. I mean, there's no doubt about it, man. He was totally influenced by the heavy duty things that were going on around him. You know, so there are stories like this uh throughout the Metal Hurlant and Heavy Metal, you know, magazines, with the various artists and writers and how they were affected, why they did what they did, you know, how they became the artists they eventually became. And it's fascinating. So we're going to be getting into that. Meyer says Fist of the North Star, a popular Japanese manga from the early 80s, also very derivative of both heavy metal and Road Warrior. Yeah, they're, man, needless to say, yeah, when Road Warrior came out, that was another thing that just spawned a buttload of derivative movies and some derivative animations. Michael Taylor, can't wait to see the heavy metal mags. Yeah. Oh, wait until you see this stuff. It's going to blow your mind. Let's see. BOC was originally going to do the soundtrack for heavy metal, but only ended up contributing Veterans of A Thousand Psychic Wars. Most of the music ended up being on Fire of Unknown Origin. Correct. Yes. But, you know, and it's one of those things, as I say, some of their choices were great. The Don Henley track, of course, that was huge. Huge. When you think of those songs, the various songs that were big on the radio when the film came out, Psychic Wars, Blue Oyster Cult, uh, heavy metal, Don Henley, uh, you know, the Sammy Hagar heavy metal song. I forget what the hell that was called. That was also very popular. The two Devo songs were huge. We're Through Being Cool and Working in a Coal Mine. Both of those were getting a ton of radio play. And it was one of those times where there was this crossover, right? And I think that was a cool thing about it. Uh, Actually bringing in Devo wasn't heavy metal. I mean, Devo was like this weird alternative, you know, rock group, but they were totally heavy metal in terms of, you know, the magazine. That was it. They were just, you know, you just put heavy metal across their heads. You know, they fit like perfectly. You know, so Michael Taylor says, interesting story, Mike. Okay. Yeah, so there you go, guys. That was my presentation for heavy metal and the subsequent animated films. Let's see what we got here. Gold Key says, I think it was the right decision to use Yes, indeed it was. So that's it, folks. Oh, wait a second. I got something in from Meyer. Pretty sure that my tape player ate that tape from playing it over and over, and I bought it again. Yeah, that probably, man. I imagine a lot of people just wore the shit out of their heavy metal soundtrack, 8 tracks. Good lord, you know, or cassettes, right? I mean, good God, man. You know, so, but in any case, that's it, guys. And so, of course, next Friday we're on for 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to dive into more glorious 1970s, 1980s, and who knows what the hell else stuff that is released on Tubi, Canopy, perhaps a little Kino Cult. We will see. We'll see who else, you know, Freebie might have some new stuff. Possible. Michael Dodd says, good show. See you fellows Friday. Great show. Great topic. Thank you, Gold Key. Thank you, Michael Dodd. And once again, if you guys haven't already done so, please like and or subscribe and or both, I guess, you know. That would be absolutely fantastic. Michael Taylor says, I was aware of the heavy metal mags. I just never read them. Well, you're going to see some. Oh boy, you're going to see some great ones. Just wait. I have such sights to show you. Yes. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, there are any ladies watching. Thank you for being here on this heavy metal Sunday. And I will see you guys Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. And we're going to get into some movies. So until then, have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.